Basically, we kind of done the same as Arafat, but with music. So, any questions? Yeah. No. My name's Abo. I'm a singer-songwriter. I've been a musician for about 16 years. Before that, I was an engineer for about 10 years, an aircraft technician. I'm so used to playing on stage and playing in front of people and not being nervous at all, but I feel quite nervous right now trying to speak and talk about what I do. I came to Dubai about 5 or 6 years ago, and I was a gigging musician as a solo musician for about 7 or 8 years, traveling around. And my wife got a job here, so we ended up coming here, and I thought it was going to be kind of the end of my music career, I think, because I got here and it was really, really hard to try and find any sort of music scene that was going on in this city. So I couldn't do anything else, really. I didn't think I couldn't feel that I could do anything else. So as much as I was trying to work hard to try and get into a music scene that wasn't really here, I started doing corporate gigs and private functions, and I'll let you start as well, and you butt in normally.
Yeah, normally I'll interrupt quite a bit.
Right.
So my habitat is a studio with no windows and no one in it. So forgive me for public speaking and kind of being like, okay, don't know what to say. So I started off in a punk band in Los Angeles, and then straight from there, and we used to make fun of like the pop music, and our best song was a medley of NSYNC songs that we would mess up on purpose and everything. And then a couple months after quitting that band, I was in the studio with NSYNC. And that was one of the first things, and just kind of got thrown into it. And then from there, it was like Bruce Springsteen and Stevie Wonder. And it was a lot of fun and a great experience, but I moved to Dubai because the music scene in Los Angeles kind of collapsed because of the IP stuff and people kind of stealing it and pirating. People around Los Angeles completely lost their jobs. So I moved here in 2007 and have been working in music since. So,
how did we meet?
Yeah.
We met at a gig once. It was an album release show on the beach in the marina, and we didn't get on very well to start off with. I think we realised after our second meeting that first impressions shouldn't always last.
The album launch was an album that I did, and it was on the beach. And I was excited, and we just kind of met, and I kind of was in his face going, come on, you know. And so that first impression wasn't a good one. And then he later on came into the studio. I had a listening party, and there was an artist that I was working with called Noosh Likes Sploosh, and another artist called Empty Art Experiment. And he came in to listen, and we spent about an hour talking about Jeff Buckley and the string arrangements on that.
Yeah, I was kind of looking for a producer at the time as well, because like I said before I lost my track, I'd been working as a solo musician for about 7 or 8 years, and it was about time, since I settled in Dubai, to try and I felt I wanted to try and put a band arrangement around a lot of my songs and a lot of the music that I did. So being a songwriter for such a long time, I've always been on the search for finding a producer that I could work with that could make the ideas that I had into something that was more of made sense as a product, or made sense as a finished product, because I would come up with ideas, and I needed somebody else with kind of like outside ears or a different perspective to help me push that into something that was an end product for us. So we started working together. I met Josh one day in the studio, and he said he had a free Wednesday one week. And the initial idea for me to get my album together, if you like, or the music together, I'd been around Dubai quite a lot, and there's a lot of hotel bands here. There's a lot of great musicians that are here, but there was no real creative music scene. There was no real singer-songwriter scene or anything like that. I saw a lot of artists they had promise, and I think they had something to offer, but there was no real sense of community or anything like that. So my initial idea was to get different musicians, a different drummer for each song, a different bass player for each song, a different guitarist, and then get in with Josh and start working on that and try and hopefully, I think the initial thought was to make an album and to show not just people in Dubai, but everywhere else, that there are great musicians here, and there is great music, and there's something something worthy to show, and I could continue, hopefully, slowly being a musician and not have to get a 9 to 5 or another job. Not that anyone would employ me 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So we started doing that, and Josh said he had that free Wednesday, and I'd been working, I'm a freelance photographer as well, so I was working, doing Thursday nights at one of the music venues here. And there was a band there that I saw every week. I'd been working there for about 8 months. And if I had to choose a band, if you gave me like that moment to pick a band to work with, also the fact that they were already a tight unit, I went and approached them and asked them, would you be my band for the first song that we were going to do? So we got in the studio, did our first song, which eventually led to...
They decided to form a band together and do an entire album.
Yeah, over time. Yeah. The first song worked really well, and then we thought, you know what, should we, rather than try and get other musicians, should we just see if we can, that chemistry works really well, should we see if we can move that on and do the next song and the next song? And
the problem with that was they were all full-time musicians, so that every night they had a gig. And so we still wanted to continue to make music, so we started this thing called 521 for now. Basically stands for 5 hours, 2 songs, 1 song, or 2 people, 1 song, and we had to finish that. So we would start recording, we'd mix, master everything in 5 hours, which is, if you know about music production, that's not an easy thing to do. And so I have a massive warehouse with a bunch of junk. And so we would just look around, and I'm not a drummer, I can play drums, but I'm not very good. He's a guitar player, but we would have to fill up an entire song. So we would go around, and I have some stuff, and I'd look around the warehouse, and I'd be like, okay, what does that sound like? And we put a mic there and be like, okay, that's a snare drum. You know, we'd get another thing and we'd walk and be like, okay, here's a little painting. We put a mic next to that and you go, and it sounds really quiet, but when you do that, it's the bassiest thing that you can have. It goes woof, when you put a mic right up to it. And so that would be the kick drum. And with that, we would create our drum samples. And I have a basketball hoop in my warehouse, so I would shoot the basket and it would go through the net, and that would be a snare drum. And we kept on doing that kind of thing, and within 5 hours, whether it was good or bad, we would release it on the internet.
it doesn't sound like a paintbrush on a picture or a basketball hoop. Like like Josh used his talents to manipulate the sound, so it sounded like there was a drum kit involved. And we did use some normal instrumentation, but we were doing things like throwing light bulbs on the floor and smashing them with a microphone next to it to try and create different sounds. So we could, like for me, I kind of was after more product with the music that I was doing. I was selling my CDs at the markets that I was doing around town when I first started getting here. And I kind of came to the end of my product that I had, so I needed to find a new way of getting a product together as cheaply as possible. I think that was one of the main reasons why. So the two of us working together made it cheap. We made the sound.
Fun as well.
Yeah, and it gave us the opportunity to work with each other and see how well we could work with each other. And I mean, that was, how long ago was that now? That was only
Like 2 years ago.
2-3 years ago, and we've been kind of working together ever since, doing what we've been doing, right?
Yeah, so during that time, he was also performing at Saturday nights at Jazz Pizza Express in JLT. And he was begging the owners to start an open mic and have a platform for all ages people for them to be able to play. And so, I don't know, you...
Well, I think that's one of the things. It's kind of like the connection that we've got with you doing Comic Con. Like, I'm feeling a bit more comfortable now, a little bit more relaxed, I think, from the start. So,
I'm terrible.
yeah, I know. Yeah. So I'm not gonna. I always tell people when they're on stage, never apologise. But I'm really sorry that we're throwing it backwards and forwards like that. When I first came here, there was no real music scene, and I couldn't leave music behind. Music was all I did, right? And I didn't want to ask my wife to leave because she got a great job here and she really enjoyed it. I would never do that anyway. So I tried to make something here that it was already, there was a burgeoning scene, very, very small scene of singer-songwriters and musicians that wanted to do well for themselves in music. But I found I saw a lot of events that were going on. There was usually maybe one every 2 months. And I used to see, like, one of the artists would be there on that night, and they'd be okay. They kind of showed a bit of promise, but there was something, they weren't used to playing in front of people. And the stage would be big, and it'd all be nice flashy lights, and there'd be a lot of money spent behind it. But the artists, you could see they were a little bit nervous. And then it came to the next gig a couple of months after that, and you could almost see the insecurities from the previous gig came into the next gig, and they were still a little bit nervous. And
a lot of these artists are opening up with massive, Justin Timberlakes and stuff, and so they're thrown onto this massive stage, yet they don't have the experience and they haven't started from the ground up. Like growing up in Los Angeles, being in a band, we would have what was called pay to play. So any band could play the Whiskey A Go Go or the Roxy Theater, which are like world famous venues, But the way that you would play it is they would give you tickets and you would have to sell it. So any band on a Tuesday night, you would be there. And some of those bands would be terrible, but that's the way that you would get better and improve. Whereas Dubai didn't have that platform, that basic beginning platform. And so that's what he...
Well, yeah, I also came from a very short career in a teaching background at university, which was basic performance coaching and stagecraft and stuff like that. I went off touring as a musician after that, so that's why it was a short career. Like, I would have probably stayed longer if I didn't have some touring gigs. But also through my career, I spent a lot of my years doing open mics. So you could, the city and the town that I grew up in, or that I spent most of my music career in, you could go out 6-7 nights a week and walk from one bar, play 3 or 4 songs, and then walk to the next bar and play 3 or 4 songs. And then, so even in a walking distance, you could get that practice in one night, which some of these people don't get in like 4 or 5 months. So the first opportunity that I saw for me to try and push that forward was, like you said, Jazz at Pizza Express. I started playing there on a Saturday night, and I was badgering the owner because I could see some of these people that needed this practice, and I'd love to give them that platform. So I kept badgering the owner to give me a night to be able to put on those sort of events and start nurturing the talent that was already here, to give them an opportunity to, rather than do a gig on 1 month and then they had to wait 1 or 2 months to do another gig, they could do a gig on a Sunday night. And if it didn't go too well, it didn't matter. They could come back the next Sunday and the next Sunday and the next Sunday.
The funny thing on that was the first night there were 6 people there, and it was kind of a small group. And the first guy performs, and after that he thinks he's done, but they serve drinks there. And Abo asked him to come on the second time. And
it was a very small list of people.
Yeah, he needed to fill space, and the guy goes on stage and he does a great job, but he's very difficult for him to stand.
It probably wasn't wise to put him on the second time, later on.
But that went from 6 people to about 30 people a night. So 30 artists would perform there. And then during that time, I was working with one of my business partners, Fahim Al-Qasimi, and we went to the open mic and we were watching all of this, and we started seeing the talent of the artists, and we were sitting there and we're like, we need a platform for them to be able to get their music out there. And so we started what's called Record Pro Records, which is kind of an indie record label. And then at the same time, we started Fair Play Music. And Fair Play Music, it's fairplaymusic.com if you want to go there. It's basically just a playlist of local music. And every time you press play, the artist gets paid. So it's a way to get back to the musicians and the community. If you own a retail location, it's a perfect place to play it, playing local music.
It bypasses the rules that you were talking about as well.
Yeah, but there is no licensing on it, so it gets paid through basic streaming sites and everything. So any retail location around the world can play it legally. But
at that point, we were very limited on the amount of content that we had on there. So one of the initial ideas, some of the artists that came through were just getting better and better and better, and some of them were already really good. Some of them still are not very good. But they're getting better and better as time goes on. But at that point, it was a few different conversations going around, and there was a collection of, like the 3 of us together said, we kind of need to get some of these people recorded so people can see what we're doing, see the music that's actually coming out of this city, and build content for the Fair Play Music playlist. So we sat down, me and Josh, one day, and argued quite a lot over the list of acts that we had, possibly that we could record.
We had to narrow it down because we didn't have much time to do it all, so we had to do it pretty quickly.
And we knew we were going to upset people along the way, which we did. But
basically, we were offering them a free recording and doing an album so that they could be on the playlist. And we wanted to make sure every song was a different genre, so that it wasn't just a bunch of people with their acoustic and everything.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing that upset most people. If we wanted to pick the folky dude with his acoustic guitar, we probably could have picked 20 people like that, but then that would have been a boring thing if we picked all those different people and put them on one album. Be like that, it's all a bit samey. So we kind of went for a bluesy acoustic singer-songwriter guy, jazz fusion band, Arabic jazz fusion band, kind of like what we just described Daisy Grimm as.
Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters, yeah, kind of vibe. A lady singer-songwriter with a piano, an R&B guy, Hassan Malik, and
Mumford and Sons band,
Vandalay, yeah. And we had 2 other acts that couldn't make it. One guy had to, as unfortunate as it might have been, he had to go back to Egypt and be part of the national service over there. and the other people were doing a gig somewhere else. So there would have been, I think, 8, 9 acts on the album.
Yeah, so
to start off with?
We ended up doing 6, and that was the first launch of Record Pro Records. That was the first album, and it went to #1 in the Middle East. And it was great because there wasn't advertising behind it. It was just a community of people that supported and wanted to make sure that these people were doing really well. We had nothing really backing us. And to get to #1 and waking up the day that it was launched and it being #1, and it stayed there for a long time. And I actually had people from iTunes Middle East ask me, how did you get so many people to sell it, or I mean to buy it? And nothing. It was just community. It was just the family of musicians that are in Dubai that supported everyone.
I think that's the biggest thing that we've, like you say, it's not that I disagree with it, but it would have been really tough for us to try and find sponsorship for doing what we're doing, because obviously most people would say there's no money in music anymore.
Well,
but
something that hasn't been done in this region.
Yeah. But I think what we wanted to do, I mean, obviously we'd love to have people that jump on board that want to put money behind what we do. But what we wanted to do, I think, was try and build some sort of undeniable product that we could go to somebody with and say, look, this is something that we've built off the back of no sponsorship whatsoever. And from that, just running the nights that we've done and building the community of people and the spirit of the people behind what we've been getting together from. We've had people that have come to us and said, look, I was the only musician I knew 12 months ago. Now all my friends are musicians. They come down because it became a real family spirit behind it.
It's a very big underground music scene that's boiling over right now. And it's a lot of fun to really kind of be a part of and to watch. And unless you're part of that community, you probably don't even know that it exists. So,
I think part of what, it might take a long time for us to explain it because of our love of what we grew up with musically, but I think part of one of the connections that me and Josh made as well was I love grunge music. That was my thing as a kid growing up, and every scene. I mean, I've always loved the history of music. Before grunge came along, I was into everything from Hendrix to Bob Dylan and the Beatles and Rolling Stones and stuff like that. But every scene that has ever been highly successful has always been through a group of people together rather than just one individual. And today, the music today, there's a lot of individual bands in a sense, like the days of when rock and roll first came out, or the Liverpool sound, or grunge, or punk, or any of these massive scenes. And it was always a community spirit behind the bands and the effort that these people were putting in that made that scene something that stood the test of time.
And the good thing about, just using the Seattle scene as an example, and that's kind of what we're trying to do in Dubai, and what it was Nirvana was the one that everyone knows, and they were the one that made it. But if you look at them when they started off, they were horrible. If you look at their old videos when they came out...
Some people might still think they're horrible, to be fair, yeah.
But they were the least likely band to become the famous band. And I think when they did break, most of the other bands in Seattle hated them for a while and were very jealous. But because of their success, all the other bands, like the Pearl Jams and the Soundgardens and all of them, even Tad, they all started becoming famous. And it took that one band to really push them over the top. But it takes a platform and it takes a community to be able to get that one band. And that's what, at first, that's what the open mics we're trying to do. And actually have succeeded.
It needed to be a nurturing platform for people rather than we've had a lot of people come in with egos, and I think one of the things that has been most important to me doing what I've been doing is anybody that's either brand new or they're very, very experienced and they've been doing music for a long time, everyone gets treated the same. As best we can do. Do you know what I mean? Some people,
it's funny.
It's usually the ones with the egos that get treated slightly differently because we want them to know that through the years of music, it's usually the ones with the egos that intimidate people that have probably got the talent and the ability and the quality of their music, but they feel intimidated by somebody with a bigger ego than them. So
there was one night that I just have to mention, which was really fun.
Thanks.
Yeah, because Abo, he treats everyone the same, but some people feel like they're better than everyone else. And so this one guy, he walks in and he says, I need the best slot and I need longer time because I'm a professional and all these guys aren't. And Abo, after a long conversation, Abo goes, if you are that amazing, I will kiss your feet. Okay? And at the end of the show, the first chord, his guitar completely out of tune. He was one of the worst artists there. And at the end, he walks off stage and he goes, you're not going to kiss my feet, are you? And it's like, no. So that's what I like about that platform, is that everyone's on an equal playing field. Okay, so
we've had so many people that have got on stage and they've said, I've never played in front of people before, and you know, I'm there to try and do my best to. It's not always the musicians come down with their friends. What we created on a Sunday night at Pizza Express was the audience came down because they didn't know what to expect. The musicians came down because we kind of built an audience in the venue. And anyone that's brand new or anyone that's that feels that they might need a lot more practice as time goes on, they still get the same. I still drive the audience to give them the same applause as anybody that's might walk in that's amazing. Like we've had some guys, some great artists that have come in that are, you know, just coming off. They've been here for a week or 2 weeks and they've heard about this night and they've come in. And they're awesome artists.
Yeah, you can. It's, you know, we'll move on from this, but you can see an artist and they'll be pacing the stage, and you'll be like, the two of us will talk. Are they any good? I wonder if they're going to be greect. And then within one chord, you're like, yep, they're amazing. they're perfect. And you can usually tell pretty quickly if someone's really good or not.
I don't know if you follow any of the local. I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring you guys, by the way. I'm just not, you know, I'm not thinking about turning around too much. If you followed much of the music scene here, but there's a couple of guys. One of the guys in particular came to me and said, "I've never sung in front of people before." He was at the Formula One the other week. He was one of the runners-up for the new emerging talent.
Yeah. So
do we want to go on that now or later?
No,
Oh, I was on it. I was on a roll then. All right, fair enough.
Sorry, interrupted. So anyways, from the Go Play the World Volume 1, that went to number 1. Vandalai we ended up deciding that we were going to do an EP launch with them. So I produced their album, and then that went straight to number 1. And Da Vinci Park, which was that went straight to number 1. And it's all because of this community of people, which is a lot of, like, it's amazing. And then, because of all the success of these underground kind of artists, Freshly Ground Sounds, which is an events company, which it actually started before the open mics, but they would do maybe 6-7 events a year. Now they're doing 2-3 a week. You know, another company called Soundgarden, which does events, didn't exist. They basically have formed.
They started a business because of they saw the you know the opportunity that we'd kind of created.
You can see them at like the food truck jam and all that kind of stuff.
You mentioned Vandalai, but I think it's important to mention that Vandalai formed at our events. They weren't a band before. They came and met each other. They went away, practiced a little bit, got back together again. The two twin guys. I don't know if you know Vandalai. This is before I was interrupted. That's what I was trying to get on to. I don't know if you followed any of the local music that's been going on, but Vandalai, they've opened for Lionel Richie the other day.
It's been amazing to watch in the last month or so. So Formula One, Vandalai played in front of 25,000 people in Lionel Richie. Hassan Malik played in front of, he won the Yasalam Battle of the Bands thing.
Emerging talent.
Emerging talent. He played in front of 20,000 people on Beats on the Beach. The runner-up was Jamil, who also started at this little tiny open mic. He played in front of 20,000 people. The local music scene, you had Bull Fun Zoo, who played in front of 25,000 people like 2 weeks ago. So this is a scene that you might not hear about, but it's becoming something that is really exciting to watch and continues to grow. And every year it continues to get better and bigger. So like right now, because of watching the success of the people that from last year that started on the Go Play the World and what they're doing now and playing in front of thousands of people and getting #1 on the charts, we're now focusing on the new up-and-comers, the 15-year-olds, the 16-year-olds, and everything. And that talent is actually it's a little bit more raw, but it's getting just as good as the talent that is playing in front of thousands and thousands of people.
I think we've kind of been the victims of our own success in a way as well. I mean, especially the nights that I've been running, we've done, I think over the last 2.5 years, we've run over 300 events, and we've put in front of people, I think over 3,000 artists. Some of them are repeat artists, but there's about 3,000 different artists that we've had on these nights. And obviously, because we know Dubai is quite a transient city, some people have left, some people have gone on. There's guys that are now doing their full-time work is music. Obviously, these guys, Vandalai and stuff, we're always going to probably talk about, have gone on to great successes at the moment.
I think most of the bands that started off on that's their full-time job now. That's 100% of their time is music, because they're making a living off of it. And that never would have happened without that very basic platform.
And people are also inspired to be in bands now, to write songs now, to do something a little bit out of the ordinary, because Dubai has been very well known of being like the hotel covers band scene, where there's a lot of Hotel California and Mustang Sally and Sweet Child of Mine being played. But now we're now getting people that are asking for musicians and acts that specifically play original music.
And what's also fun to watch is you'll go and you'll see a cover band, but they'll cover a song from Dubai, an original artist, and that's never happened before. So that, like when you go into a club and they're playing, you know, Sweet Home Alabama, and then all of a sudden they play a local music artist and it flows just like that.
But I think
people don't even realize that that's what's happening.
that's one of the points I think when we realized we were onto something is when the audiences on a Sunday night were actually asking the artists for their songs and singing along to their songs, you know, and I mean that's really unique. Even in the world that you know, the touring world that I've done, it's everyone moves around so much. It's very rare that you get people there long enough that come back often enough to know your songs and know the lyrics to your songs and actually request them, you know?
Yeah. One of the things I also, with Arafaat talking and saying about how it's about the passion, it's not necessarily about the money that comes in, because with music, and I'm sure with Comic-Con, as you said, it's something that didn't happen, so the money isn't there, you know, so you're kind of creating something that never existed, and you're doing it because you love it, and then you have the passion for it, and you believe in it. And for me, to see, when I first moved to Dubai, the first band that I worked with, I had to teach them how to tune their guitars, and 3 hours later it was played on the radio. And it was like, okay, it sounded horrible, all right? But then to see that, and there were maybe 2 other bands that were in Dubai, one hip-hop artist, and to see it grow to where every night, pretty much every night in the week, there's an original music night where people are performing. The venues now don't need cover bands like they always had. They're not flying in people from Canada or the US or UK.
We're not putting the covers band people out of business. There's still plenty of that going on, but there's so many other venues and stuff opening up now. They're realizing that they're realizing that there is a desire for it, a need for it. I'd say a market, and I don't think anyone's making a fortune out of it at the moment, but there's definitely a desire for it and a hunger for it. Which
one of my favorite emails that I got was from this father in Australia who said that he's going to send his son to Dubai to do music because Dubai has a better music scene than Sydney, up and coming, which is amazing to us because it's so small, and Sydney has a well-developed music scene, but for someone that's just starting off, this is the perfect place to be because you're creating it. You know, you're not having to join a system that's already, you know, a factory basically.
I think that's the difficulty I found traveling around was I was trying to get involved and trying to become part of a music scene or a music industry that had been there for decades. And here it was, I think that's what drives me, I think, is, we were talking about this before, that rather than, it's a long-term thing for me. I think I would like longevity of the scene here, but I'd also like to look back in 20 years' time and be able to say I was part of building something like that, rather than, oh, I was part of a music scene in New York or in Sydney or whatever like that. We were part of creating something that didn't historically. I think people tried over the years, but when I first came here, there was a lot of people that would say, oh yeah, blah, 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 did this, and how long did that last? Well, it lasted a couple of years. And what happened? Well, they left and it died. And then, you know, and that seems to have been the history of the Dubai's music scene for the last, you know, decade or so. And I hope that we're, you know, trying to do something that has some element of longevity.
I think there's a new generation of kids that are brought up here. This is their home. They feel like the UAE is home.
Yeah, they want that music scene.
So where it's not as transient in a way as it used to be. So people are staying and bands are staying. And because there's opportunities in the music scene here that you can't get in other places, the music scene people are starting to stay for the first time ever, which is
then the hardest part is going to be trying to control people's egos, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But just to kind of close it off and everything, like I started off working in Los Angeles, and I was in one of the top studios, and I would work with the top artists, and I was part of a formula. Okay, so everyone that works in there, you have certain rules that you have to follow in a way. You have certain song structures that they has to be, otherwise the label will reject it. Working in Dubai, people have said that I'm crazy. Why would I be here? Why would I waste my time being in a place like this that doesn't have a music scene? And it's because you can innovate. You know, you don't have to imitate. And so many people here, a lot of times before, they would imitate. Oh, they'd be like, oh, I want it to sound like this. I want it to sound like that. The good thing about being here is you can actually sound like Dubai, and that's our biggest thing. Is every city has its sound, and the sound of Dubai. That's what not just us, but an entire community of people are creating that sound of Dubai.
I think it's really inspired a lot of people to see that there's what we started creating is something very, very small. And there's a lot of things that people are really getting involved with now. Like in the old day, there was no point in doing it in Dubai. Their mission was learn to play the guitar, learn to be a musician, and we need to go to New York or we need to go to Sydney. And there's a lot of people, we've had some people that have decided to stay here. They had plans to leave the country and go somewhere else. And they've decided to stay here instead and be a part of what's been growing.
One of the fun things that has happened is Jack Daniels had a Battle of the Bands in Dubai. The reward for winning was a trip to Nashville to record in the studio in Nashville. That same band is now recording their album in Dubai after going to Nashville. So that's something that never happened before. So anyways, the whole point is the music scene is something that to be excited about right now. It's growing and it's going to be a ton of fun to watch. And the more support from the entire community, the better the scene is, and it's going to be something that continues to grow.